Jonathan Frank first on from Galveston, Galveston. Fritz Mueller in Miami. Gordon Smith over in Denmark. Good evening, you wonderful people, as usual. And a bunch of others on here already. Ralph Roberts is watching from Auckland, New Zealand, normally. And we've had a bit of a change in program today as Dave Perry is standing patiently by in Southport, Connecticut. He'll be joining us in a minute for a very exciting project that he's involved with. Luca Craig down in Auckland. John Emmett is on YouTube. John Mangino from the flooding east. The wind will not quit. Time to get this one off the dock, Julia. Welcome.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
I trust you survived Mother's Day and all the goings-on of this weekend and the bloody Warriors barely surviving against the Memphis Grizzlies last night.
Right. There was short time where it didn't seem like that was going to happen.
Well, it was quite. They're up 3-1 anyway. If you're following the NBA basketball as we do here, at least fair weather fans that we are. Welcome everybody. Tom Eman, your host for Tom Eman Live, show number 521, Tuesday the 10th of May, 2022. We are once again live from Studio B in San Francisco's beautiful Marina District at the Beach Street Yacht Club. My co-host, Commodore of the Beach Street Yacht Club, landlady, dear friend Judy, how did I get that? Julia Vedekint is with us. We mentioned that we have Dave Perry standing by. Luca Devoti is not 100%. I woke up this morning and he says, I got a high fever, I'm flat on my back, and he's not going to be able to do it. A lot of folks on. Carlos Aviz and Brasilia down in Brazil. Hello, Carlos. Don Lunabos across the bridge in Sonoma. Ted Ryman in Cape Town in the Republic of South Africa. We're going to dedicate this show to you, Ted, and the RSA. João Alexander in Portugal. Baton Rouge. Baton Kennan is his real name in Charleston. Rob Sternstein from Puerto Rico. Rob, a little break down on the island. João Alexander, I think we mentioned. Gordon Smith, we mentioned. Phil Walker, hello from Italia, home of the Wally Yachts. I look pastel pink, Gordon Smith is saying. Yeah, I have a new camera one here, and I'm a little pinker than I might like, but I also have this pink shirt in honor of Dave Perry, the Balboa Yacht Club. Hence, that may be contributing as well. Joe Holtzman is in Estes, Colorado. Welcome to all of you. Thanks for joining us for this show number 521. Let's get right to the pre-start. And we mentioned that our guest was to be, everybody was looking forward to having Luca Devoti, our Renaissance man, who's from Italy, of course, originally living in Spain, and was going to advise us, fill us in about his, in fact, really announce his new One Design Moth. So One Design foiler. And he has, he's taken over the fin world after he started building the Devoti fins for the Olympians and so on. And then he has started, I heard from John Emmett this morning, he's starting to build Ilka lasers. He's apparently got a license to build lasers. So that's pretty good as well. Yeah. And this new moth, this One Design moth, he is very proud of, and I think we'll hear from him soon, but he is flat on his back. He has a high fever. I hope he doesn't have the bloody Rona. He hasn't been tested yet again, but he thinks he had it some time ago, but maybe that immunity did not prevail for whatever strain he's got. If he does have it, maybe he's just got a bit of a cold. Hope so. Regardless, Luca, get well soon, right, Julia, from all of us?
Absolutely. Good
man that he is, and we want to belatedly wish a happy Mother's Day to everybody. And we should have done a thing, mother, you mother, M-U-T-H, because we're all mothers, right? Everybody on here. But I also wanted to wish a happy Mother's Day belatedly to my mother. Everybody asks about her. She's almost always on here watching, which good mothers do. She's actually a superfosa. She contributes as well, a little monthly stipend, which we appreciate. That's my mom. David's met her in the middle, in the red blouse there with her extended clan, her kids, grandkids, and kids that she helped raise at our little PYC. David's from the Pequot Yacht Club. That is our Portage Yacht Club, where David's also been. He taught some Super Racing
Oh,
Club,
has
right, David? I'm going to turn your mic up, David, so you can co-host and chime right in. Welcome.
Yeah, it's great to be here, Tom. It's great to think back on your mom and dad and all that good time we had at your home club.
And my sisters and brothers?
All well, I assume?
Yep, all good.
There you go.
You cut a wide swath through there, as I recall.
Well, anytime you're around, Tom, it's never dull.
Happy Mother's Day belatedly to all the mothers. And it's so nice to see, Julia, on the Facebook, the people that put up memories with their mothers alive or passed away.
Yes.
And, they make this world happen. And we celebrate them even 2 days after what is Mother's Day for most of the world. Not all the world, but last Sunday is for Australians, Kiwis,
Yes.
much of Scandinavia, much of Europe. Not the Catholic countries so much. They have another day, I think, in March. What day is it today, Julia?
I forgot to look.
There's a clue. David, what day is today? It's a clue for you.
Well, every day is Mother's Day in my household, so
Where's Betsy? She looked over your shoulder when we were doing our
yeah,
very brief
she heard that.
our very brief tech check. If she comes back in, I'll look over your shoulder. We'd love to see her again. But David, you remember this shot from the Gov Cup from the just in the last 3 weeks down in Long Beach at Long Beach Yacht Club for the Congressional Cup. And what do we call this in the sport?
Well, we'd have to say a bummer, but I know you're looking for shrimping.
How did you know that?
Well, because that's what it is, and I know exactly when that happened to the guy who's driving. I watched that race.
Well done. It is shrimping, and today we always have a nautical connection on here. Is National Shrimp Day, and believe it or not, there is such a thing. Pedro Foiling Sailor saying it's Catalina Washing Day.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, it is National Shrimp Day for what it's worth, and I had never heard of such a thing. Each year on March 10th, at least here in the States and maybe beyond, National Shrimp Day recognizes America's favorite seafood, and I thought that was salmon, not shrimp, but I love shrimp too. Americans eat more shrimp than any other seafood, and this is the day to celebrate this delicious. I thought it was ridiculous, this delicious seafood.
Yes.
We use the word prawn, not very often in the States, but most of the other countries, I think it's Commonwealth countries. We use their word prawn loosely to describe any large shrimp, sometimes known as jumbo shrimp, at least down in the Gulf states, in New Orleans and over to Pensacola. Some countries use the word prawn exclusively for all shrimp. David, what do you use?
Well, I ain't Bubba shrimp. You just go watch Forrest Gump, and that's
Right.
you can see every kind of shrimp known to person.
Baba shrimp.
Bubba shrimp.
Okay. Well, it is National Shrimp Day, and with that, there's again a nautical connection. We're delighted to have David with us for the show. He's co-hosting, and he'll stay. He says he can stay right through it. Let's get to the starting line. And as always, we like to start with our good friend John Emmett with his report from Weymouth. Our master mentor, John Emmett. Enjoy.
Hi, Tom, Julia, and all the Fozy. You join me at sunny Weymouth. Well, I say that, it wasn't so sunny this morning. I think it's the old English joke, there's no point in complaining about the weather because in 20 minutes it might change. But it does feel like summer is on its way and there's a lot of news. For me, probably the most exciting is about the Sail GP, and it's amazing just how many events and how quickly things are progressing. So quickly, it feels like they can't get all the boats ready in time. Another big news that I know the rumour mill has been going on and on and on was Ian Walker is looking to join North Sails, so I'm sure they're going to be very, very happy about that. Team GB has really set the benchmark in Olympic sailing probably since about 2000, I guess. So yeah, that's going to be a sore loss to the RWA, and be interesting to see who steps up to take those very big shoes. I'm here for a couple of weeks before we go off to Holland, and I'm really looking forward to today's guest, who is a legend of the sport. I don't use that lightly. Luca's large in life, and I always look forward to hearing what he's going to say. And actually, I'm probably going to be racing a Devotti Ilka. Sounds funny to say that after so many years of saying laser, next month, and I'm really looking forward to doing that. I think the competition between builders will hopefully lead to lots of better boats, because everybody's really trying to push hard to have that boat that everybody wants. So competition, yeah, should give perfection. So going back to laser, the old name, we're going to be starting to film here next week for Storm School, and it was quite difficult actually to get lasers as opposed to Ilkas and laser sails and make everything look like the Olympics. I just hope the weather's something like this, but there's nothing we can do about that. Everyone's always complaining about the weather, nobody does anything about it, but there we go. Have a great show, and I'll try and catch you all later.
Our European correspondent, John Emmett.
Yes.
Master mentor, John Emmett Sailing. He's a coach. David, have you met John? Do you know John?
I haven't met John, but I spent a lot of time in Weymouth, looking over his shoulder, brought back some great memories, training with the women's match racers from 2009 to 2012. In one of the most exciting Olympic events, the women's match racing event, which I sorely miss.
We often say that on here, that the best Olympic event in memory for most of us was that and I wasn't there, the 2012 women's match racing right off the beach there, right off the breakwater. And it was good I was umpiring in 1992 in Barcelona, and that was a good event as well. David, what are the chances that we're going to have match racing back in the Olympics sometime sooner than later? How about 2028 in LA?
Well, anytime you have two boats vying for a medal in the medal race, you're going to have a match race. But as far as formal match racing, Tom, as you know, it's generally done in keel boats. And it seems like the decision's been made to remove keel boats from the Olympic program. I guess some younger sailors, more inexpensive boats, more countries involved. So I think we need to look back to the World Match Race Tour, to the Sail GP, the America's Cup, and the WIM Series to feed our match racing yayas.
Well, you probably know that there is a fair push coming from LA, from John Sangmeister, from John Shadden and others, to do some kind of a match racing event 2028. And their idea, at least Sangmeister's idea, I don't know if John Shadden is, how supportive he is, but it wouldn't surprise me if he is to have, so we don't have to have an additional bunch of sailors, but to have a match racing event for just the sailors from the teams that are already there, put them onto a match racing boat, 3-4 of them something, onto a smaller boat, and have a match racing event, which not only gets match racing back into the Olympics, but also allows a team, some sailors, to win more than one medal, which, as you know, for swimming, for track and field, otherwise is very attractive when you can come away from the Olympics with multiple medals. What sayeth you?
You know, I love people talking about match racing. I love it when I hear people thinking about match racing. I wouldn't bet my house on the fact that match racing will be in the Olympic program in 2028, but I love the fact that people are loving match racing.
Indeed. If you're just joining us, that's Dave Perry, of course, who's very well known across the globe. He's been a longtime rules expert, coach, a great sailor in his own right. He's live via Skype from Southport, Connecticut, his home there. And we've known each other for, I guess, 50 years. I think you got to Yale in 2022. Is that right?
Oh, wait, all right. Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, not 1972.
Yeah, I think, Tom, let's just leave the numbers out of it. They confuse us.
It's for sure confusing me today. It's been a big scramble. Delighted to have Dave with us. And he's going to talk about this experimental Rule 18. He's been pushing a method, Julie, to simplify the mark rounding, the room at the mark rule or mark room rule. And we'll get to that. But first, let's explore a bit about his superb match racing career, which continues. We got three when Peter Taylor heard that David was coming on in place of Luca Devotti. Of course, that bit with, as you will have seen, that bit with John Emmett was recorded earlier this morning before he knew that Luca was under the weather. So that's why he was referring to Luca. But we'll have Luca on here soon. David, nonetheless, is a superb match racer. And when Peter Taylor heard that Dave was on, he sent these three photos from what, Dave? This is Oak Cliff.
This is from the first U.S. Match Racing Championship qualifier event. There's 7 or 8 ways you can qualify for the U.S. match racing champs. This was the first one back in April at Oak Cliff Sailing in Oyster Bay, New York. And it was nuking. That's Ched Proctor. It was one of Ched's, or actually, it might be Lionel next to him, but there was one of the first match races for a bunch of my crew, and it was windy, and we had a ball.
Yeah, and these nice photos, as I said, from Peter Taylor, who does a lot of volunteer work, race committee and otherwise, and is a Fozy. He's been on the show a couple times and contributes a video from time to time, and he really likes that photo of you, David, in your Artemis racing hat. What did you do for Artemis?
Well, listen, as you, we love our rules, and I call it a passion. My wife calls it a perversion. But my love for the rules has got me to be a rules advisor for not only several Olympic teams, but several America's Cup teams. Some of the best times of my life to be part of those high quality teams. For some reason, I was with Il Moro in '92, but then I've been with the Swedes quite a bit. I was with Victory Challenge in 2007 in Valencia, which was great. A bunch of Swedes, and then a whole different bunch of Swedes was Artemis Challenge in 2013 and 2017. So, and you get a lot of swag and a lot of it's hard work, but it's a challenging work, and I miss that.
Now you have your Kilroy U.S. Sailing Team shirt on. Is that for a particular reason?
It's a little chilly here in the East right now, Tom, and I wanted to grab a sweater. I also love to support the U.S. Sailing Team whenever possible. We have an uphill battle to climb our way back to the top of the sport, but with Paul Cayard now and others, and Kilroy's been very generous, people are making an effort, and I like to support that. And I've been the rules advisor. I was at the 2021 games virtually. We decided not to go in person due to all the COVID situations, but from my kitchen, I just reversed my time clocks. I was awake all night, and with WhatsApp and Skype and Zoom and other of those technical connections, I was right there. And so I'm a big believer in the U.S. team, and I'll do anything I can to help them.
So will you be helping them again in Paris 2024?
Nothing formal, but I'm certainly available. They know how to reach me, and I've been in contact with Paul and Luther over time, and I imagine, I'd love to be, and I'm certainly, I'd love to see young people getting the same bang for the buck out of the sport that you and I have gotten. It's just great to give back that way.
What? Go ahead, Julia.
No, it's fun to listen to the young match racing guys who say, "Oh, I never knew this could be so much fun and so interesting," and it's a whole new side of the sport to them, and it's exciting to see that.
Well, David's been the Pied Piper in many ways. He's dragged. He's led a lot of kids like Jeffrey Peterson into match racing and to hire. He's a Fozy who's been on the show, as you all know, to higher and better things in match racing. Dave, how about your interest in the rules? Who sparked that? And I know, you know me, I don't ask questions that I don't normally know the answers to. And a mutual friend of Julia's and mine, and of course yours, I think, probably was the basis.
Yeah. Well, it began with my dad, just like with your dad.
Yep.
He was a big sailboat racer. He raced the Atlantics, Pequot Yacht Club. In fact, he used to race against Briggs Cunningham and also John Hersey, the American novelist. And Dad was very interested in the rules, and we used to talk rules. When I got involved in sailing, we'd get the classic knife and fork and salt and pepper shaker. That's how Mom would always know when dinner was over, when Dad would push all the plates out of the way, and out came the knives, and then we started talking rules. And then that carried with me through to college, where Harry Anderson was a huge influence, and in fact, Greg Bemis also. We used to go to college regattas, and when one division was sailing, the other was sitting on the dock. And at MIT, Greg was always the rules advisor or a judge there. Greg, of course, was one of the authors of the modern racing rules that came into effect in 1961. And he would just sit down right with us, back against the wall, and we'd talk rules. And I just loved it. So it was also college racing. You need to know the rules to be successful. So there was a real self-interested reason to learn them. Not as weapons, you never use them to try and throw people out, but you can certainly play the game at a higher level. You can anticipate situations. And so my rules knowledge has taken me to great places as a competitor, and also as an advisor to others who don't really have the time to want to learn them or don't have that same interest. So it's nice to have an advisor they can ask questions to.
Well, you've made a great contribution already, having chaired rules committees and appeals committees here in the States and serving on the rules committee and working parties and so on for world sailing. But you mentioned a moment ago the Pequot Yacht Club. Let me take you to the Pequot Yacht Club. Where is that? And you mentioned Briggs Cunningham and a couple others.
So the Pequot Yacht Club, those two buildings were onion warehouses back in the 1800s. And Southport, Connecticut is a little village in Fairfield, Connecticut. It's part of Fairfield County. We're about an hour from New York City. And in the 1800s, it was a bustling seaport. The ships would sail from Boston to New York, and they'd come inside the Sound, and they'd come into Southport Harbor. It all gentrified when the trains came around, and so now it's just a lovely town. It looks just the way it did 100 years ago. And the Pequot Yacht Club is a simple sailing club. The building on the left is the senior club, and the building on the right is the junior club, though it's also the shop where all the boats are repaired and whatnot. And it's a pure sailing club. And I was fortunate to grow up with the Dave and Brad Dellenbaugh, the Dellenbaughs, and my friend Peter Daly and others who have just fallen in love with the sport. But Briggs Cunningham was the most famous sailor when we were growing up. And he, of course, won the first modern America's Cup in 1958 when they came back to the 12s after World War II. So the club's got a long history of great sailors, and we've certainly benefited from being a part of it.
And the name of the yacht that Briggs Cunningham sailed, Julia, in 1958? The Gem of the Ocean?
Columbia.
Well done. Well done. David, how about this club?
Well, that was my home away from home. When I got to Yale, I wasn't planning on sailing. There was no internet back then. There was no way of knowing there was anything about sailing after junior sailing. I went as a music major, and I remember the first week of freshman year, they had the big activities fair on the big lawn in front of the old campus, and all the clubs had stuff out there to kind of get kids to join. And off in the distance, I saw a sail, and I heard some music, and I got closer, and it was the Dead, and I got closer, and there was a keg of beer, and I was in heaven. They had a sailing here? I had no idea. And so they said, here, come out this weekend. And so we got in a little bus, and out we went to Short Beach, Branford, Connecticut, about a 15-minute drive, only to find the Yale Corinthian Yacht Club, which is right there. You're looking at it. All run by sailors and students. There wasn't an adult in sight. And during the 70s, that was really the mecca for a lot of Olympic training. There were a lot of 470 sailors that came through, and foreign sailors would come, and sometimes there'd be 15 or 20 people sleeping in various configurations throughout that building.
That's great. It's a great building.
Yeah, I can think of some nights I was there that it could have used some adult supervision. In fact, we needed a den mother, Julia.
Yeah, no adults allowed. Of course, it's all changed. The sport we were a club sport back then, as most college sailing was, as I'm sure Michigan was. But when it went varsity in later on in the late 1990s, 2000s, and now it's all run by adults. Zach Leonard's the coach. Of course, it's the #1 sailing team in both men's and women's and team racing. They're crushing it. It's still got the identity of a great place to sail, but nobody lives at Yik Yik anymore. So that era is gone.
I remember back in 2014 that there were some community issues of zoning and so on.
Fog machine is
NIMBY is a real thing, and there were a lot of people who lived out there that didn't think it was basically an animal house.
NIMBY, not in my backyard.
right.
Julia, you had a comment from Fog Machine.
Fog machine says, when I sailed today, there still isn't an adult inside. Just a bunch of old adolescents.
Fair enough.
A couple other comments we should. Jonathan Frank, who's talk about Renaissance man. He's. I was going to put his painting. Did you see that painting he did, Julia?
Yes.
Terrific painting.
It was very
He
good.
paints, he sings, he plays the bass guitar. He's a good sailor. He's a United Airlines pilot. He's saying, of course, it was the beer, David.
Of course, but of course, every table, every club had a keg of beer, so that was a commonality. And there was something else in the air back then too.
How about Deerfield? What's the connection? I mean, Deerfield Academy, where John Sangmeister went, everybody saying, go to Deerfield.
Well, it's a wonderful boarding school, and John was there. He's very proud of the fact that he was there, and I'm very proud of the fact that I went there. Dave Dellenbaugh went there. It's just a good old-fashioned, solid school. The headmaster had been there for 66 years.
Ooh.
Frank Boyden, the year I got there was the first year he wasn't there. And it's got great values, and it was just guys back then, as most of the schools were. It's co-ed now, as most of the schools are. But John and I have that in common, and it's great to see him on.
Is it shrimping weather in Connecticut today? Stingray up in Seattle is asking.
Well, and there's no weather for shrimping. I mean, we try to avoid it, and but the sun is out, the snow is gone, and we're starting to. I'm going to go team racing tonight at Pequot Yacht Club. We start our team racing in May, and our little Ideal 18s, which are great, and I'll probably have a sweatshirt on and long pair of pants, but it'll be nice.
Julia.
Yeah, Fritz Mueller says Dave is a hell of a piano player, if I recall.
Fritz Mueller. Well, Tom, you really pull it in from all corners, don't you? Yeah. The drunker you are, the better I sound.
Not the better you play.
Oh, nothing to do with that.
I can attest what a good piano player he is. We've played together any number of times in the old days at U.S. sailing meetings.
Yeah.
The late great Lynn Stedman, who was a past president, thought that we should have a band that played at U.S. sailing, what was then USYRU parties. Mm-hmm. And we had a terrific professional banjo player, Walt Chamberlain from New Orleans, Southern Yacht Club, who's also the late great. And David would play piano, and I would play guitar or bass or something. And we had a hell of a lot of fun. That's what sailors love to do, especially Aussies and Kiwis, more so, I think, David, than Americans.
So, Tom, I think your viewers would enjoy having you bring out the guitar sometime and play them a little tune.
What a crouton.
What do you think? Everyone should write in and demand that.
What a crouton.
There have been a couple of times, but
Happy birthday. Yeah, we have brought the little. I have a banjo uke, David, which you're back in the talk about Yale and Princeton and Harvard days. Back in the early 1900s, you didn't go to school without a banjo uke or a uke. That was, it was a very popular instrument back in the Ivy League days.
Yes.
Anything else about Yale or about Pequot? We love to talk about clubs. They're the heart and soul of this sport, as you know, and you've been a big supporter of yacht clubs and club racing. You mentioned the Deadhead, the Grateful Dead, being a Deadhead, and of course Harry Anderson was the original Deadhead.
It's still hard for me to believe.
He was, Julia.
I know.
Julia doesn't believe me,
No, he's told me. I believe him, but he just
You'll have to check with Pedro on that.
Peter Eisler. Yeah,
I would say that the college sailing in the U.S. anyways, it really bonds a generation. I think that some of my closest friends, are friends that sailed in college at the same time, and then we had a great group. We had Augie Diaz and Mark Reynolds and Buzz Reynolds, and of course Pedro and Benji at Yale with Stan Honey was there. But Sam Altruder and on. Carl Buchan, and just Brian Thomas, Mark Laura. Just on and on. We just all happened to go to school at the same time, and I'm sure every generation has their group. But I love that college sailing scene for the simplicity and the bonding that happens, and so I miss that.
Yeah, Gary Jobson, Bruce Nelson. I remember Mark Laura well. In fact, Stingray, who's on here, is he knows Mark Laura well from Seattle. Music Illustrated, Ted Ryman is saying, maybe let's put the band back together. Jonathan Frank he sings. I mean, he's a terrific singer. Yes. He's on here as a Fozy. Yeah, we do attract some cool people, David. In fact, Steve Atkins is asking if you're going to the Atlantic class dinner tomorrow night.
Absolutely. The Atlantic class is a Starling Burgess design 30-foot boat, was very popular sort of before the war and after the war, and was the one design fleet of choice on the Sound. And my dad raced in it. I mentioned that before. My Aunt Charlie, his sister, and Briggs Cunningham, etc. They're honoring my dad's sister, Aunt Charlie, who is the first and only female to win the Atlantic Class National Championship. She did it when she was 18 years old, and she passed recently, bless her heart. They're having an award that'll go to the youngest competitor in the Atlantic Class Nationals each year to try and recognize and encourage young people to come into the Atlanta class and other classes. So I'm going to be there at the dinner and tell some stories about my relationship with the Atlanta class and then give out that award.
Well, why am I not surprised? You're not very good at telling stories, I've noticed.
Well, you get to our age, Tom, we got a few of them. We just have to choose which ones to not tell.
Steve Adkins, who you must know from the, he's a past Commodore of the, what's the name of the club? They used to have the tolls there. Oh gosh, I can't remember. Steve, forgive me. He's been on the show. He's a foes. He's been on the show any number of times, and he's asking about that dinner. Chris Musler up in Jamestown and Newport saying, missing my skipper, Captain Butterfingers. I want to know how college match racing has influenced match racing and the U.S. MRC Match Racing Championship. And also, how has the gender balance requirement in college match racing changed things, if at all? David.
So can you tell Chris Musler is a journalist?
Yeah. This is all off the record, Chris, right?
So listen, whenever kids ask me, what are some of the secrets to success in sailing? I tell them many things, but one of them I tell them is find somebody you love sailing with that's really good, that elevates your game, that you love spending time with both while you're racing and on shore. And Chris Musler is that person. I came back into the sport in 2006 after taking 21 years off. I went back to the Prince of Wales, the U.S. Match Racing Championship, because you didn't need to own a boat. The races are short, good for my attention span, and I love the match racing, And so I got Chris come sail with me, and we did 10 in a row. We did 10 U.S. Match Racing Championships in a row, and we won 4 of them, second a bunch of times. But we went to the Beach Boys concerts and stayed up late at nights. And
did Musler crew for you in those?
Crew for me. Chris was the main person.
I didn't know that.
Oh, he's amazing. He's a great trimmer. He's a great on the bow, but his attitude is unbelievable. And that's Tom Blackall used to say, there's only 3 things that matter when you're picking a team, attitude, and attitude. And Chris Musler, if you ever want to take a happy attitude pill, just go have a piece of his, whatever he's drinking.
He's been on the show, Julia, at least once, maybe twice, and was one of our out of the box. I mean, we had more viewers for that show live. A lot of people watch it in replay, but a lot of his friends came on, friends and family. I've just remembered the name of that yacht club. It's the Madison Beach Yacht Club. Remember the Madison tolls? Which I think they took the tolls out in Connecticut after the fiery crash, right? Some truck 18-wheeler crashed at the Madison. But the Madison Beach Club,
that's right,
is a terrific club, and Steve Atkins, the past Commodore, has been on the show. He was the first person we knew who had COVID.
That's right,
and his wife, and long COVID. He still apparently has a bit of a affliction.
He was very helpful for everybody who was struggling to understand.
Yeah, with Andrew McIrvin. Ricardo Labato, thanks for bringing Dave, our match race teacher. Pedro Foiling Sailor, apropos your most recent comments, David, saying, great advice, Dave. Stingray up in Seattle saying, I can't believe some of the guests who joined this show. Dave is yet another brilliant. David?
Well, we're all friends of you, Tom. You're the key to all this, and I figured if we keep making you happy, then you won't tell us bad stories about us.
Not a chance.
Don't count on it. I know.
No, I think the last time you were on was, we'll ask Clark Chapin, but it was about a year ago, year and change, when Commodore Anderson, Harry Anderson, past Commodore, esteemed past Commodore, New York Yacht Club, and supporter of college sailing and the Finn class and many other things, former vice president of world sailing. Yep. And when I got to U.S. sailing in '79, Harry was sitting there at a desk. He was still working there. He had been the executive director once removed from myself. And I asked him, what's your advice? Did I ever tell you this, David? When I got there, I said, Harry, you're so successful and you're such a great talk about attitude. I said, what's your advice? He said, Tom, I've only got two things to say. Leave the office at 5.
Oh, yeah.
And be at your club, meaning the reading room in Newport. Yeah. Be at your club with a glass of scotch in your hands at 5:05. And I'm sure you were at the reading room with him any number of times, but he would go, and that wasn't about drinking. It was about being with your friends, gathering with your friends, and having a good time, which you have done in spades. Julia has done in spades. And with this show, we're trying to do it with a very cool global community of people. It's astonishing.
Yes. As
you say, David, the number of people. Let's see, Pedro Foiling.
Well, before you go on, let me give a shout out to Ralph Roberts.
Yes, indeed.
Ralph Roberts has a huge place in my heart. way back when I was a young man, Ralph pioneered a program within IYRU or ISAF, whatever it was called back then, to have a coach, bring a coach to the Youth World Championship to work with all the kids who came to that championship without a coach. You know, obviously all the major countries come with coaches, but there are a lot of kids there whose their parents bring them or they just put them on a plane. And those kids were underserved. And Ralph, and he tells a great story about it, but he and a couple others, Ding Schoonmaker was another one.
Yep.
They cobbled together some dough and they asked me to be the first one. And for about 5 or 6 years, I was the coach at large at these championships around the world. And back then, Alex, my son, was 9 and my daughter was 6. And for those 5 or 6 years, I never took a penny in coaching fee. I would just say my stipend was fly my son. So Alex and I would go to Japan, or Alex, Eliza, and I would go to South Africa, or Alex, Eliza, Betsy, and I would go to Sydney. In fact, that was the end. They said no more after that. That got expensive. But,
Well, that was the start of the youth. The what was then IYRU, I guess, Youth Sailing Foundation, and Ding and a couple, 3 other guys, and Ralph was the spark plug, as you rightly pointed
Youth
out.
World, the Youth something or other trust.
Youth Sailing Trust. That's it.
But Ralph Roberts was fantastic. He and I spent some great time together. In fact, the last regatta I was at before COVID hit, February 2020, was down in Auckland, the Youth Match Racing Worlds. And Ralph and Penny and I and some others had a wonderful dinner together at their place and got all caught up. And I'm just so happy to see that he's here and cheering on the young man that he's always been a big fan of. So thank you, Ralph.
Yeah, that's terrific.
One of the great people in the sport, no, without doubt. If you're just joining us, we have David Perry live from Southport, Connecticut via Skype. Long time friend, 50 years that we've been sailing and hanging out together.
And still talking to each other.
Well, and not only, but I think better friends than ever. We, you know, it's just, the sport is so fantastic, as you know, Julia, for making friends and keeping friends. Now we've got a band. We now have the Sailing Illustrated band, SIB, S-I-B, because we got Wingrove down in Tampa Bay. Bill Wingrove saying he's going to play. He played a ukulele. We got, as we mentioned, we got our bass player and singer, Jonathan Frank, David, the piano player. I'm sure there's some drummers and so on. We'll carry on here. Speaking of carry on, David, how about this photo? What's going on here?
Oh, that's a classic. So Zach Rayleigh, this is the 2008 Olympics, and he was sailing the Finn, obviously. This is the medal race, and Ben Ainsley and Zach were in contention for the gold medal. Mathematically, either one could have won it. As I recall, they were safe on the bronze, or they were certainly safe to get a medal. So this is, there were actually 3 general recalls of the final medal race. And before and during each one, Zach loved match racing and he loved the whole concept. And he felt that Ben was going to come after him. So Zach's idea was, I'm going to go after Ben and take the upper hand there. And sure enough, he did. And in the first 2 starts that were both general recalled, Zach had a better start than Ben. And then in the final start, I can't remember exactly how it worked out. And Ben, of course, won the gold medal, and deservedly so, and Zach got the silver. But this is me and I'm in heaven when I'm able to discuss on a high level rules and tactics, especially one-on-one tactics from match racing with a sailor who loves it. And you can just see in Zach's, he's just all in right now. He's drinking it in. I'm all in. We're coming up with a strategy, and you know, and it was really a high point for me. And Zach and I often talk about that moment.
But your rules expertise and your love really is for match racing, is it not?
Well, I would say recently, but I did the whole laser thing. I was part of the first laser generation. My first laser was 931, a brand new out of a box, $695. College racing was all fleet racing, short course racing. I did 2 Olympic efforts in the Soling, crewing for my friend Peter Eisler and for 80, and then driving for 84 with my friend Brad Dellenbaugh Moose. That's longer course fleet racing. I loved all that.
Moose meaning Moose McClintock.
Moose McClintock, I always say one of the best sailors in the U.S. that nobody knows. Is just he's won 5 J24 North Americans with at least 3 different skippers, on and on. And he's coaching at URI right now. He was part of that whole college thing. So I would say, Tom, it's evolved. I love the tactics of the game. I'm not the speed guy. You know, when you're young and you want to carry on the sport in your 20s, back when we were doing it, you either chose the Olympic path, which is stock car racing, or the America's Cup path, which is more Formula One racing. And I chose the stock car path. I've always been that kind of sailor. And then match racing didn't really flourish until the 90s when it really got going. I sailed with Peter Eisler quite a bit as tactician, and I love the battle, the one-on-one tactical battle, and matching wits and the rules, and it's always changing, and so I enjoy that. I wouldn't say it's right now I would say it's my favorite thing, but certainly over time I've done it all. I've never done any ocean racing. You'll never find me on an ocean race. I always said at the end of the day of racing, I wanted a cold beer and a warm bed.
Not even Ensenada. You should go with us on It's Okay or with Andy Rose and Co. It's just an overnight race, maybe.
I'm sure it is.
Down the and then you get to Ensenada, Mexico, where it's a nice atmosphere, and you should do that race with the It's Okay gang sometime.
Yeah, well, I'm sure I would love it, but I really love the short course, the tactical stuff, and match racing just puts it all together. And I love turning the younger kids onto it because, in fleet racing, they don't really get into the boat-on-boat stuff as much. But if you get good in match racing, then next time you're fleet racing, you can own the boat. You can own the pin.
Absolutely.
You can own the lured mark. You can own any one-on-one situation because you know what to do. And so it's a great cross-discipline to help them with that. I love being that person.
Yeah, you like being home in bed at night. I know Betsy's lurking in the background. She's hearing all of this, taking it in, and she's saying,
and
"Wow,
dry, nice warm, nice chicken parmesan."
Okay, the band is forming up. Gordon Smith says he has an old washboard in the garage. What's Daniel Yount's not about the band? Would like to do one, but I like Lakeside for sure. I agree wholeheartedly with Dave on match racing. That is Bill Wingrove down at Davis Island Yacht Club in Tampa. Stingray, who grew up in South Africa, says he'll play the didgeridoo. Jody Shields says he'll play his flute a bit. My wife hates it. I don't know about that comment. Julie, you can wave your finger at Jody on that one.
Man, Tom, I'm sweating here a little bit now.
Ted Ryman says he'll be the bouncer. Pedro Foiling Sailor down in Sydney says he can play backing on gum leaves, and Ed Worley is a percussionist. Justin Palm saying, Dave the legend, thanks for all you do for the sport. Nice sentiment. So one last thing on match racing before we get into the rule. David, I have this slide of you, of course, I guess, is that Ficker Cup or Congressional Cup or where is that from?
Yeah.
Those are the Cat 37s, right?
I don't know. Or maybe those the old 38s.
You sent me that photo.
Well, I'm sure you have a bunch of photos in your thing.
Yeah,
but I'll say it's match racing. Catalina's. I don't know. It's match racing somewhere. Probably a Congressional Cup.
But you're also the leading light, the founder, along with Andy Rose, of this trophy, of the U.S. Youth Match Racing Championship for the Rose Cup, which will be held next month at Long Beach Yacht Club. And Andy and I and Chris Bretschker will be our producer. We'll be at Long Beach with our Gov Cup TV team, televising it. Again, this year I talked to Josh Toso before the show. He was pleased to hear that. But tell us about this trophy, David. Tell us about the Rose Cup and all you've done for that and how cool this is for the sport.
Well, first of all credit goes to the Balboa Yacht Club and Andy Rose, Larry Law, and many others. They, as you know, they've run the Governor's Cup forever. It's it's 50 some odd years old now. The Governor's Cup is the most prestigious international youth match racing championship. In fact, the Governor's Cup a couple of issues ago was almost a grade 1. Maybe it was a grade 1.
It was 2 years ago. That's right.
Meaning the skippers all had like top 10 rankings in the world, not among the youth. So, but Andy noticed over time that there weren't enough Americans. There weren't many Americans near the top. Very, very dominated by the Kiwis and the Aussies until their full credit. So he wanted to get something going in the U.S. that would generate match racing in the U.S. for the younger sailors, and nothing like having a national championship. So they began an event. And we ran it for 3 or 4 years as a test event, if you will. U.S. Sailing wanted to see if the thing really had legs. I think it was called the Rose Cup from the beginning. I wasn't part of that, and Andy says it wasn't his idea either. So there's an organization, the Newport Beach Balboa Sailing Association, Seamanship Association, NBBSA. At any rate, someone named it the Rose Cup.
And I should add, not Andy. He always denies that, and he paid. He didn't. I know well. He paid for it, and it has been a very successful championship. And now the U.S., thanks to this event and your Pied Piper role in all of this, and Andy and others. Now we've got a winner of the Gulf Cup last year we've got a winner of a U.S. winner of the Gulf Cup. We have a U.S. winner of the Youth World Match Racing Championship.
Yeah. Well, in 2015, it became a national championship. It joined the U.S. Sailing shelf of national championships. Balboa hosted it. And since then, it's been a national championship. And as you pointed out, Nevin Snow went on and finished 4th in the Youth Worlds at one point, maybe 3rd if I'm somewhere in there. And then Jack Parkin finished 2nd down in that event in Auckland I told you about. And then this past summer, Dave Wood and Jeffrey Peterson were in the finals against each other. And David prevailed, winning the Youth Match Racing World Championship. And Jeffrey Peterson, a week or two before, won the Governor's Cup. And they are both former winners of the Rose Cup. So it's working. The Andes and the others' dream is working. We're generating more and more interest. If you look at the world rankings, there's more and more U.S. youth sailors moving up the ranking. Full disclosure, the Aussies and the Kiwis were not able to come to the World Championship last summer. I still think that Dave and Jeffrey would have given a good run for it, but due to COVID, it was tough. But this coming summer will be in France. Hopefully it'll be a full event with everybody there, and Jeffrey will be our representative. And if we can get 2 entries, David will be there also. So they're doing great. I want to say one more thing, Tom. You and I are getting a little older. I sailed the Ficker Cup about 3 weeks ago in Long Beach. The Ficker Cup is the qualifier for the Congressional Cup. And in the field at the Ficker Cup was Jeffrey Peterson, Dave Wood, Peter Holtz, Chris Weiss, all these sailors that have come through the Rose Cup program. All of them cut their teeth on match racing. I coached them all. And to be able to go out and race with them as peers was thrilling.
How'd you do against them?
Well, on the outside, I always say it's a win-win. If I beat them, that's great. And if they beat me, what a great job coaching. On the inside, I'm like, don't you dare lose to these kids. And fortunately, I prevailed. Fortunately, Peter Holtz, the oldest of them, he was one of the original Rose Cup sailors. We met in the petite finals for 3rd and 4th. I won the first race. He won the next, and then I remembered that he was getting married the following week, so I let him win the 3rd race as a wedding present going forward. He was very appreciative of that. So. But it was so great to sail against Jeffrey and David and Max Brennan and Chris and all these people that have come through the program, and I'm pretty, I'm there coaching them, and then to race with them. What a great sport that you can be 20 or you can be 68 and you just go out there and you can compete at a high level as friends and respected competitors. And, I can't think of another sport where that can happen. And I wish that on anybody who coaches, that you'll have the thrill of racing at a high level against the people you coached. It really is fun.
It is indeed. How'd Oak Cliff go, speaking of Jeffrey Peterson?
Well, so Jeffrey won the event at Oak Cliff.
Did he?
And so therefore we didn't. So good on him.
Those first 3 pictures we showed that Peter Taylor sent were from Oak Cliff, but that was early in the season before David was warmed up. He's old. He's got to take a little. Jeffrey's young and he's sailing in SoCal all winter and so on and so forth. A question.
Anyway, those guys, they're great.
Say again.
I said not to take anything away from Jeffrey and those guys. They're great, and they have a great team attitude. They understand the importance of working as a team. It's so important because a lot of our youth sailing right now is single-handed. The Opti thing is all single-handed. Then if you jump into I still got to call it the laser and the radial, the ILCA, can't get that out of my mouth.
Yeah.
Single-handed, and then in college sailing and high school sailing, it's double-handed, but the drivers still often, run the show. So to get in a 4, 5, 6-person boat in match racing where every single person is important, the driver is just, a cog in the wheel. And to have them appreciate that at the age of 20, that's going to set them up for a great career.
We've often say on this show with people like Ralph Roberts and everybody else, how important it is to get kids into big boats ASAP,
So
whether
important.
match racing or otherwise.
Yes.
You know what? They should be in big boats and they should be foiling. That kids should be doing. I am a big believer in not specializing when you're young, and that goes across. Kids who play soccer year round. I can almost promise you when they get to college, they're not going to be playing soccer. And I think, but I also tell kids, how when you're young, they always say you're going to grow up to be like your parents. And of course you want to throw up when you hear that. Well, it's true, by the way. I always say when you grow up as a sailor, you're going to sail keelboats. And they're like, no. I go,
Yes, you will.
And the sooner you get to sail, the other secret to success in the sport, I always say, is sail with the best people you can. Get on a boat with the best people you can.
Absolutely. And
Well,
I
I
always
always
say I learned more from sailing with adults at our little club on that lake in Michigan than I did from in our junior program. But we learned, plenty all the time. But sail with adults, sail with people who are better sailors than you.
It's the bet. You can't. The things you pick up there, you can't even do in a classroom. And I say, if you're 20 years old and you're pretty good on a keelboat, you're gold. I mean, every sailor sails a big boat is always looking for crew. So I tell that's your ticket right there. Don't give up the team racing. Don't give up the dinghy sailing. Don't give up the foiling. But get your butt on the rail on a big boat program at your club with some good sailors. And if you're good at match racing and keelboats, and you know that drill, and you know how to talk on a boat, and I always tell you, be the first one there, the last one to leave. Always be seen doing something, even if you're coiling a line. And you're gonna. That's a secret to success. And so.
Well, Ed Worley is saying the more boats you get on, the better you get because of the feel, learning the feel. And I think one of the advantages we had as kids growing up sailing in things like the Sears Cup, where you never knew if you're going to sail a Lightning or a Thistle or something, maybe even an Atlantic or an IOD or something in one of the semifinals or something, Flying Scots, and the more different types of boats. We were all sailing Sunfish and lasers. You were sailing Blue Jays on Long Island Sound, and to say nothing of Four Twinkies and whatever else.
Well,
you said.
Blue Jays, then Lightnings. We sailed Lightnings from
Exactly.
15 to 17. We all were fortunate enough to own Lightnings, and our instructors, like Jimmy Crane, was one of our instructors. He's a world champion of Lightning.
Yep.
He would talk to my parents, hey, can we borrow Dave's boat? And Dave will come sail with me, and we'll go down to New Jersey to regatta. And we get to go sail with those guys. Of course, I learned a lot more about things than just sailing, hanging around those guys.
Says he modestly.
You probably taught them a few things too, David.
I think that's really missing now, the interaction between young people and adults. I think it's missing, and I think it's to the detriment of both groups.
Yes.
Everyone on here will agree with you, and we talk about it often, and it's so nice to have you come on and put an exclamation point to that point. Jody Shields has a question. Has anyone won the Rose Cup, the Gold Cup in Bermuda, or the Congressional Cup and the America's Cup? And I think the answer, there's some people who have won the America's Cup and the Congressional Cup and maybe the Gold Cup. Yeah, Russell has. The Rose Cup, I don't think so.
Yeah, not yet. It'll happen. Bill Ficker, of course, famously won Congressional and America's Cup.
Mm-hmm. Dennis did.
It'll happen.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that's a little different now, and I think it's a little different, is that kids, when they get to their 20s, I think they're going into the workplace a lot more than I know we did. And I think that's one of the reasons our Olympic program's a little flagging, is that, it's kids, first of all, they go to college in the U.S. I'm not saying they don't go to college other places around the country, but they go in the U.S. That's a given. And then when they go to college, they spend a lot of dough and time, and they go to work, or they get into a workplace that, might give them a weekend off here or there, but they're not. I don't know, Tom, when you had my first boss was at Greens Farms Academy in 1985.
Where you taught school for a long time. You were
I was the athletic director for 21 years, but that was after my 2 Olympic efforts. I worked for myself. In my 20s, I taught clinics and we went racing. And then that's what we did. And, you eat a lot of peanut butter and jelly, but, but I think that's a little different now. I don't think the 20-somethings are, a lot of times I hear, I'm doing this and that. I go, oh, I wish I could, but I got to work. It's a dark work thing.
There's a lot of information coming post-pandemic that that particular work ethic at expense of everything is leaving the new graduates, so that they're looking more to balance their life.
You think that's so? What David is saying, you think now post-pandemic is not so true.
It's changing.
People are not so work obsessive.
Yeah,
if that's the right word.
And I mean, take for even nobody wants to go to the office anymore. They'll work from home.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's people leaving companies like Apple because they don't want to have to go in and work for in that beautiful facility they have.
I know, and 2 huge buildings are now almost empty, but with everybody working.
Comment from John Rogers, talking about great coaches down in San Diego probably. My favorite story about Dave was from the CISA, California International Sailing Association clinic at Alamitos Bay Yacht Club, ABYC, in the early 80s, and we were facing a drifter day, and Dave knew we would need some encouragement to get out there with a positive attitude. David, what was that encouragement that you gave John Rogers?
John crushes it, but boy, that was a long time ago. I did a series of articles in back then it was called Yacht Racing Magazine. Major Hall is the editor, and it was a column he started called Winning in One Designs. And I did that for 4 years, 10 of them a year, and I put all those in a book. And I had one of my chapters was called Those Lovely Light Air Days. And I thought, you gotta love them. And I did a whole chapter on that because on Long Island Sound, we grew up with no wind. I don't even know how we all learned how to sail. So maybe I told that kind of story, or maybe I did something crazy and I've shut it out, or maybe I don't want to share it.
maybe John
maybe John can dangle a little reminder what I did.
He might chip in. Clayton Embley saying it would be nice if clubs would entertain mandating a junior sailor in the beer can races. I don't know how that works in other places, but at Balboa Yacht Club, the boats, as you know, Dave, are you an honorary member down there? You're there all the time, but you're.
I am. I'm a proud honorary member of the Balboa Yacht Club and the Long Beach Yacht Club.
Yeah, and that is there are 2 clubs, in fact.
And the Alamitos Bay Yacht Club, I should just say, also.
And ABYC, and probably a number of others. But how about the Goat Club? How about Fort Worth Boat Club?
Well, aren't we all?
Yes.
There's a fan. But there are, in fact, to name 4 or 5 clubs. All of which have lots of kids out on boats, on beer cans, and otherwise.
Yeah.
And it's
Tom, at the Pequot Yacht Club on Wednesday night, which is our big racing night like everywhere else, there might be anywhere between 10 and 15 boats that go out between 25 and 45 feet, and every boat has kids on it. It's not in the rules anywhere. It's just in the culture. And I can't stress enough how important it is for adults to take kids sailing. First, it's a win-win. The kids are going to do great. They're going to like them. And those kids are going to grow on to be adults and love the sport. So take kids sailing.
John Rogers now has said what it was, at least the polite version. He said, as we coasted out the channel, Dave is on his loud hailer shouting, "We love light air."
Right. Yeah, there it is. Yeah. It was a sell job, John. But
well, we grew up in the same, we grew up on that little, you've been there, that little pond in Michigan, which, you get a frontal passage and it might blow out of the northwest hard for 12 or 18 hours. The same on Long Island Sound. In fact, you used to have a sea breeze in Long Island Sound until they paved Paradise and put up a parking lot on Long Island.
We used to imagine a giant pair of clippers just clip Long Island off right at the Whitestone Bridge, just float it away and let that the other side of Long Island, the South Shore, had this beautiful breeze every afternoon.
Yeah.
Problem is, they also they clipped their seaweed out there, so there was tons of seaweed with that beautiful breeze, but it was still a nice breeze.
If you're just joining us for an hour into the show today with Dave Perry, our longtime friend, esteemed, he's been on the show before a couple times, but an esteemed coach, rules expert, and a contributor to the sport at the U.S. Sailing, the Youth Sailing, and the World Sailing level. Delighted to have David with us live via Skype from his home in Southport, Connecticut, by his home yacht club, Pequot. Pequot Yacht Club, which is one of the few in the countries that has both a senior clubhouse and a junior clubhouse. The other one, David, being in Marblehead.
Sure, Eastern Pleon.
Eastern and Pleon Yacht Clubs. Dave is a rules expert, as we said, and we are now going to go to this next segment. The real reason I called him this morning when Luca called in sick. I got up this morning and got this email from Luca Devoti, who's, I'm sick, Tom, I'm sick. And he is, I hope he's better quickly, but he said he's got a high temp and really was not, I didn't talk to him, but he's really not feeling well. I talked to him maybe or texted with him an hour before he went live.
Yeah.
And I said, David, I've seen your comments and the various coverage of your experimental rule working party trying to simplify the mark room rule, Rule 18. And I would love for you to come on and tell us about this, because I know you're trying to get clubs, classes, other local organizations to take up this experiment between now and, I guess, July. Why don't you come on the show? What better day than today, since Luca's under the weather. And with literally with 4 hours notice, David put together some slides and we did a quick tech check, and here we are with lots of other stories, as you would expect. Besides this topic, experimental Rule 18, David, take it away.
Well, I will. I just wanted to go back momentarily. You mentioned the Rose Cup's going to be at the Long Beach Yacht Club. I saw Justin Palm was on, and they are hosting the Rose Cup in their new fleet of Solings, which is very exciting. And so full shout out to Long Beach Yacht Club for bringing in a fleet of club boats and then doing a lot of work to get them up to speed and then hosting a national championship. So it's going to be fun.
Those are a bunch of old Solings from the '84 Olympics, I think, most of them.
I don't know the history of them.
And then now they've got new sails, new bottoms, new keels. They've really done, as you say, a lot of work.
The key is the commitment from the people there, and I would love that to be a sort of a challenge to other clubs around the country and the world to do the same thing, to get club boats and make them equal, do small keel boats, and then you can have fleet racing, you can have team racing, you can have match racing, you can learn to sail. It really is. People are more and more people are buying fewer and fewer boats. So, when I saw Justin there, I wanted to mention, shout out to them. It's going to be exciting to be there in a month or so to see the Rose Cup in action at Long Beach Yacht Club.
Okay, let's go back to comments because they're flooding in here. And Julia always likes to remind us.
Yes, when the show is over, go back and read them because they are fun and instructive.
Everybody, not just David.
No, everybody. Me too, because I think I read everyone as it comes by, and inevitably there's something wonderful I missed.
Stingray up in Seattle saying, replying to Fritz Mueller, Charlie McKee, Seattle and later an Olympian, had a gold-colored $500 Chevy Nova in high school. I laughed at him in high school. He opened the trunk. It was full of brand new 505 sails. Justin Palm, ponds in Michigan. Justin's a Michigan boy, the best place to learn, yeah. Except I think he was sailing down to Lake St. Clair, which is a bit of a pond as well. Talk about light air, and especially in July and August. Jonathan Frank at our Sea Scout ship, we found that kids don't have the best opportunities. The kids who don't have the best opportunities are more energized to be a part of the group. Sailing should be available for all. Good point, Jonathan Frank. Mm-hmm. Jody Shields, my first memory of Jody's are. Do you know Jody, David?
Well, I'm going to say I'm not sure.
He's an Aussie. He's from Wanji, a couple hours north of Sydney. He was on and off the commentator for Sail GP. He's a hell of a good commentator, racing commentator. He's now got a podcast. Jody, I'm giving you a plug for your podcast, Banging the Corner. He's had RC on. He's had Russell Coots on 2 parts here in the last week or so.
That's a great name for a podcast, by the way.
Banging the corner.
Banging the corner. I always say when I sign my books, I say to so-and-so, hike hard, sail fast, and be smart. And when all else fails, bang the corner.
When all else fails, don't do it on unless you're sure the breeze is going hard left or hard right. Jody, who's always got a clever comment, my first memory of sailing a big boat was when I was 14. My job was to drink the beer to the neck, then fill with green ginger wine, then pass up to the crew. Great. What is that? In Charleston, Wednesday, this is Baton Rouge. He's here as his comment, as his handle. In Charleston, Wednesday night sailing, most of the skippers are dads and moms, and to get a hall pass to go sail, you take your son or daughter.
There you go.
Nice.
And let them drive.
And yeah, in fact, you have to sometimes encourage. You have to say, "Hey, take the wheel, do it." You just not let them drive. You got to really encourage.
It can
them
be on the way out or the way in, but let them drive. That's the hook.
For sure. Dan DeLave or DeLave, I'm not sure. Dan, welcome. It's a new name. Dave, just wanted to thank you while we are here for your presentation at Alamitos Bay Yacht Club a few weeks back. It was great.
That was at the CISA clinic. I did a cameo.
How many years have you done the CISA clinic?
Well, Gary Jobson began it, and I was right there in sort of 78, 79. It's a little fuzzy, but it's right around then. And I probably did it. I ran it probably through 92 when I was running the youth champs at the time. So, solid 10, 12 years.
Hey, a lot of things back from 78, 79 are a bit fuzzy.
Yeah. All right, well, Tom, maybe we should move on.
Justin Palm, yes, Tom and Dave, Long Beach Yacht Club's new sailings are in as new condition, quote unquote, updated and refurbished by Dennis Choate. New rigs, club soling, deck layout identical. New sails, user friendly for all skill levels. And they still, speaking of Wednesday night sailing, they use those boats for some kind of Tuesday or Thursday night sailing, maybe multiple. Sure. Different nights of sailing. It's nice to have club boats, and I have a feeling, Dave, that club boats are coming back because of all the expense that we've been talking about, kids not being able to afford boats at a young age. They're trying to get a car, trying to pay off student debt, with many comments to that effect. And I don't know, you've got Ideal 18s at Pequot, and more, I think it's back to the 30s, 40s, and 50s when clubs did have club boats. That kind of went away for a while. And I think all those clubs, one of the reasons why there's so many good sailors in the Gulf, Gulf Yachting Association, is they've always had club boats down there and a lot of inter-club as well as intra-club racing. Mm-hmm. David?
Well, the nice thing about club boats, and on Long Island Sound, there's 20, 25 clubs that have them. There's hundreds of Ideal 18s, but most clubs that have club boats find a way to finance a coach or a sailing pro. If you play golf or tennis, you belong to a golf and tennis club, there's a pro, and you can pay them whatever you pay them, $50 for a half hour or whatever it is. You can go out and work on your backhand or work on your short game. But adult education in our sport is really missing. It's hard for adults to get education, and that's one reason that people go away from the sport or they don't get better. Having club boats, we have a young man named Evan. He's a school teacher 9 months of the year, and he works at Pequot in the summer, and he runs the racing, he gives feedback, he runs the debriefs, he's available for private lessons, he does group lessons. He's available just to take somebody out and show them how to dock a boat. And so club boats have a lot of other benefits that come with them. You need to find a few pillars of the club that'll pony up to begin with and figure a way to finance it. But once going, and it's another way to bring in, Pequot, we have a special activities member where for a small amount of money, you can join the Ideal program for 2 years, and you can come down and use the club and go sailing, and you pretty much can do everything but go to the annual meeting and vote for 2 years. And then at the end of that, now you can decide, is this club for me? Is the sport for me? And the club can kind of decide, is this person for us? And it's a great, pretty much it's a pipeline for 20 or so members a year into Pequot that come through the club boat program, the special activities membership program. So there's more than just having club boats. I think it's a real ramp for growth in the yacht clubs, who are all experiencing aging memberships and declining discretionary time, and people aren't owning boats, and all the things that yacht clubs made them great back in the 60s are challenges now.
An on-ramp to the sport. Julie Aarons in Cleveland, you don't have to own a boat. Just show up on a race day. Everyone is always looking for crew, especially early Sunday morning. Yep, good point,
That's true.
Julie. Lots of other comments, but here's a question. We mentioned that this podcast that I've listened to, it's Jody's doing a great job, called Bang the Corner, but my beloved mother is on here, Janice Davis. She's saying, I am too old. She's almost, well, I won't say how old she is, right, Julia?
No, but
Gentleman never says.
of
But
a
she's
certain
closing
age.
in on 90, though.
Yes,
I am too old to, and she's a former national champion
she is.
in the rebel class back in the 60s, crewing for my dad, and swore after that regatta that she'd never sail with him again, but they did win.
Oops.
Oops. Well, it was on a little lake near in central Michigan, Jackson, Michigan, Clark Lake, and they were expecting typical lake conditions. They sailed 2 up, and it blew like hell for a good bit of the regatta. She's asking, I am too old to know. David, you have to answer this. I am too old to know what bang the corner means. And my mother is, shall we say, she has a curious mind.
Well, bang the corner is when everyone's going left and you go all the way to the right as far as you can. It's a desperation. The song Desperado quickly comes on the airwaves. And, you're either a hero or a zero. It's pure desperation. Be like putting all your money on, 8 in the roulette wheel.
Yeah, banging the one side of the one going one way or the other, upwind or down, hard left, hard right. And irrespective of what the rest of the fleet is doing, just to try to get some leverage on the fleet, because you're probably way behind, banging the corner. Ben Nichols is saying, Winning in One Design is the best book ever written for helping sailors to advance their racing skills. Thank you, Dave Perry.
Well, thank you, Ben Nichols. I appreciate that.
And Ed Worley's suggesting the clubs could coordinate with the local Sea Scout programs to develop junior sailors and provide opportunities. Yep. And James Bland down in Austin, who's building a terrific boat. People need skin by hand in his driveway. People need skin in the game to stay engaged. Small one designs is a better answer in his opinion. Yeah, okay. Whatever you've got. I mean, it's like the old thing about what kind of a camera do you need to start a video podcast or just to start a little photography hobby or career?
The one you got.
The one you got, exactly. Banging the corners in Oz slang means a lot like having skin in the game. Stingray is saying, oh, okay, I didn't know that. Sailing clubs, Daniel Yount, is sailing clubs need to take part in local city or group events to get the word out. Good point. And David, that's how you found out about sailing at Yale. It was down on the Diag, the club day when all the clubs had the folding table and a glass of Kool-Aid and said, here, come out to Yuk Yuk.
Yeah.
Yuk Yuk.
Yep.
Yale Corinthian Yacht Club. David,
All right.
how about the World Sailing Rule 18 Working Party?
All right, well, let's get into it. So, first of all, the World Sailing Racing Rules Committee created a working party last April to see if there's ways to simplify Rule 18, which is the rule that applies at marks, which is arguably the longest rule and the most complicated rule and the most misunderstood or not understood rule in the book. They created a working party, and you can see the names on the screen: Blue Lobato, Ricardo Lobato, who's on this call right now, and Lene Jewel from Denmark, Blues from Brazil. They're both members of the World Sailing Rules Committee. My friend Dave Dellenbaugh from the U.S., John Stanley from Perth, Australia, Rob Overton, longtime chair of the U.S. Rules Committee, and myself, we're the working party. And if you flick to the next one, Tom, next screen there, we were tasked with trying to simplify Rule 18. And the reason is people don't know it. They don't understand the rule. They can't remember it. And when they're on the water, they can't apply it. So mark roundings are very often just yelling fests. People yell at each other. There's a lot of anxiety. There's collisions, and none of that's good for the sport. So go to the next one, Tom.
Wow, you're really good. You remember, elaboration is good, and questions too.
Yeah, well, so I was just going to say, we were asked not to fix the game. The game is working just fine. But we were asked to see if there's a way you could say the rule in a simpler way so people could understand it and remember it. So go to the next one there, Tom. We've been working hard. We've been meeting every 2 weeks since April. The next rule book goes into effect January 1st of 2025. So we've got some time, but you've got to get going on these things. We were asked to send a draft of our proposed Rule 18 to the Rules Committee by August 1st. We've got a draft test rule that we've been working on, and we want to see how it works. We want to be able to kick the tires a little bit and go out and try it. So between basically now and July 15th, we're asking people to test it on the water. And I'm going to tell you how you can do that in a minute. Then we expect another test rule in 2023. And maybe we'll try and do it more in our winter, the down under summer, which will be, standing on the shoulders of feedback we got from the Rules Committee this fall. And then the final submission needs to be in August 1st of 2023. So that's our timeline. Tom, I'm happy if you keep on trucking through the slides here. We've taken a fine-tooth comb through the current Rule 18 and the definition mark room. And we try to remove all the extraneous stuff, the stuff that you either don't need or is so complicated that, it's just in there to cover a situation that's never going to happen. We've removed 108 words from Rule 18, the definition mark room. We've reduced it by 20%. And if you're counting lines, that's 21 lines in the rule book. So Tom, the next few slides we can go through. I was just going to say, what are some of the key simplifications we've come up with? And then at the end, I'll tell people how they can test it both on the water and virtually. One is we try to get rid of that phrases that people don't know what they mean. The first one's in the preamble to Section C. That's where the rules are about mark room and room and obstruction. And it says in the preamble that the Section C rules don't apply at a starting mark surrounded by navigable water, which is a race committee boat. And then it goes on to say from the time boats are approaching them to start until they have passed them. It should be until they have passed them. Well, nobody knows when you're approaching it to start. Exactly. No one knew when that period was. Exactly. So, vague terms that nobody really knows the answer to don't lead people to a feeling like the rules are simple and for them. So we got rid of that. So it just means that, a lure boat never has to give a winter boat room to go under the committee boat. 3 minutes to go, the winter boat can just go behind the lure boat and ping the line or whatever they need to do. Go on the next one. Probably our signature change is a change that was already made in match racing and kiteboard racing, the high-speed rules. We're changing the definition of mark room. Right now, mark room is room to sail your seaman-like course around the mark. Now we're going to change it to your proper course. So definition of mark room is going to be room for a boat to sail her proper course to round or past the mark. That's going to remove all the it depends. If you look at the diagram, let's say there's a gate right here. So look at the red boat. She's on the inside of the right-hand gate mark looking downwind, and she's the keep clear boat. She's a windward boat, so she needs to keep clear. So she's an inside boat. Well, how much room is she entitled to? Only room to sail a seaman-like course. Fine, whatever that is. Now look at the inside boat at the other mark, the yellow boat. Well, she's an inside boat, but she has the right of way over the blue boat. She's a lured boat. So she can sail her proper course if it's a single lured mark. Of course, if it's a gate mark, she can go as wide as she wants and attack the outside boat. Unless Rule 17 applies, in which case she can only sail her proper course. And if your eyes aren't swimming over already, when she jibes from position 2 to 3, now she goes from being untitled to sail her proper course to her seaman-like course. Well, all those it depends are so complicated and confusing that when you try to teach them, people say, Dave, you know what? Golf is a simple game. I'm just going to go around the mark and stay on people's way. We've removed all those it depends. The way we have the test rule now, an inside boat is entitled to sail her proper course. Period.
Full stop. Yep.
Full stop. Whether she's a right-of-way boat or a keep clear boat, whether it's a single mark or lured mark, whether 17 applies or not. How much room do I have to give the inside boat? Room to sail her proper course. How much room do I get as an inside boat? Room to sail your proper course. So we're hoping people can remember that easier.
And remind everybody what the definition of a proper course is.
Well, in a nutshell, your proper course is the course that you think is going to get you around the mark and to the finish as quickly as possible. And it's in the absence of your neighbor, but basically it's swing wide, cut close. We'll just put everyone's familiar with swing wide, cut close, whereas seaman-like was somehow closer.
Well,
So,
yeah, exactly. It was closer without getting yourself into trouble.
it was just vague, and
Yeah,
it was, but the fact that an inside boat that had to keep clear could go a seaman-like course, but an inside boat right away could go a proper course. Already, that's just, you know what? They're in the zone. Let the inside boat sail their fastest course around the mark. Simple. Keep it simple. So
Good. Okay. How about
so that's
this?
what we're hoping. Let's go to the next one there, Tom. In Rule 18.2, which is where mark room is, we're making the first rule the rule that says, what do you do when the boats are overlapped or not overlapped? That's actually the second rule in 18.2 now, and the first one's kind of, hardly ever used. So we're putting the most important rule is number 1, and we're changing it. When the boats get to the zone, if the boats are overlapped, the outside boat gives mark room. If the boats aren't overlapped, the boat that hasn't got to the zone yet gives mark room. So we're hoping that'll be simpler and easier to remember. And I point out the match racers have been using this, the kiteboard sailors, the high-speed racers, and with no complaints yet.
For years.
All right, the next one, Tom, I think is an important one. It's been unclear when 18 turns off. The rule says 18 no longer applies when the boat entitled to mark room has been given mark room. Well, you wouldn't believe the debate all around the world. When has a boat been given mark room? It's an unbelievable debate, which means the rule's not clear. So we're changing that to say, when a boat's entitled to mark room, 18 no longer applies when the boat has left the mark astern and is on a course to begin sailing the next leg. So it's going to be easy to see when a boat's left the mark astern and headed towards onto the next leg. And that's when 18 turns off. It's more objective, observable, and we think that clearer. And it's going to allow boats to jibe around the mark if jibing is their proper course. The current rules don't, though a lot of people don't agree with that. So even that debate is bad for the sport. So now if you get to the offset mark and you want to jibe, as long as you're still overlapping the mark, just jibe. And the boat behind has to give you room to do that. And we're hoping people will find that a welcome simplicity. And I guess there's just one more I want to point out. There's some minor ones, but there's two more. But this one's a bit of an unusual one. A lot of people don't know this. If both boats enter the zone on port and the yellow boat tacks first and the other boat can keep clear, when the other boat passes head to wind, the blue boat in this picture, the moment she passes head to wind, most of us believe she's entitled to mark room because she's now on the same tack as the yellow boat. Not everybody agrees with that, but we all agree that shouldn't be the case. You shouldn't be, entitled to mark room while you're tacking. So we're adding a slight change to Rule 18.3 about tacking the zone, that anytime a boat tacks in the zone and the other boat is fetching the mark, she's able to get around the mark, then 18.2 doesn't apply. Mark room doesn't apply, just the normal rules. So that blue boat's got to finish her tack, comply with Rule 13 while she's tacking, and then once she gets down to close hauled, then she is a lured boat, and she can use her lured boat. Lured
room, but in the meantime, it's the normal tacking.
Normal tacking. Yeah. If you're tacking in the zone, you don't have rights, and that's kind of how everybody sort of thinks it should be. So that's the only change to that. And the final one I'll point out is there's a rule about jibing in the zone. Actually, I didn't type the title in this morning. I ran out of time. But 18.3 is tacking in the zone. 18.4 is now called jibing in the zone. And the only difference we took there is that we took away the second sentence, which says that 18.4 doesn't apply at a gate mark. People aren't going to miss that. It doesn't really change the game. It just means that an inside right-of-way boat, if their proper course is to jibe, they've got to jibe. They can't attack an outside boat. And Ed Baird wrote a very compelling article. He said, if you're coming in at TP52 and winches are loaded for drops and raising jibs and whatnot, and you get to the zone should be a neutral zone. Right away inside boats shouldn't be allowed to just turn and attack the outside boats who's trying, all head down, trying to get around the mark. And I agree with that. So we took out that. So 18.4 now applies at a single mark also. It allows us to say, at a lured mark, the inside boat gets to sail her proper course. If she goes wider than that, she risks breaking other rules. So we're hoping people will find that. That's the way most people play the game anyways. A lot of our changes are conforming to the way they play the game.
Okay, how about the testing plan?
Okay, last slide. So we have a two-pronged approach. We want to have this tested on the water between now and July 15th. I've been in touch with about 60 organizers from around the world. And if anyone on this call wants to be a part of that, that's great. My email is right on the screen. In fact, Tom, are you going to put these links somewhere on your system where people can copy them, or how do they access these links?
Well, they can see them, but I'll ask Clark Chapin or John Emmett, who are both on, if they would just, and maybe Julia can do the same, but somebody put Dave Perry's email on. John or Clark, please write in the comment as a comment. Well, hell, I can even do that. But the point is, Dave, carry on, and we'll get those on.
And then the link at the bottom also. So if anyone wants to do the on-the-water testing, I've got a whole packet and a plan. All they have to do is email me, say where they're from and what kind of boats, and I'll send them the packet and I'll work with them. I'm going to do Zoom sessions next week. I've got 3 of them scheduled at different times around the world where people who want to test the rule can come on and I can explain the rule to them. They can ask me questions. But we want to get going on this, so this is timely. Tom, thank you for doing this. So if you want to do the on-the-water testing, email me and at Dave Perry 931. Remember, 931 is the number of my first laser. Barking spider, dark green. It lasted 2.5 years, and then the mast step ripped out because we didn't know not to get sand in the hole. The other piece of the testing is going to be a worldwide virtual test. And if you can throw that up on the screen again, we've got a 2022 Test Rule 18 quiz. We've got 11 scenarios. The quiz shows the test rule in its entirety, and then there's 11 scenarios, and it's a multiple guess. What's the answer? And you look at the situation, then you look at the test rule, then you answer it. And in that, you get to work with the test rule, and you get to apply it to common situations, and you can see right away, is this easier or is this more complicated or no change? And in fact, at the end of that, we ask you, is this easier, just the same, or more complicated? And then we leave a box for any comments at all or suggestions on how to further simplify. So you can find that quiz. It's on SurveyMonkey. You can find it at the link that's on the screen that Tom will engineer getting into the comment box.
Yep.
Just click on that link. It'll bring you to a Google Drive where you'll find the quiz. You'll also find 2 papers. One is a summary of all the simplifications, some that I mentioned and others, and one is a summary of the game changes based on the test rule. So you can really see clearly in advance what the changes are going to be if you want to make a decision with your fleet, whether you want to try this or not. We're hopeful people will try it. That's the best way to find out if it works. And if you're interested, help us out. Otherwise, spread the word, take the quiz, and you got a couple months to do it, so no big hurry. We'll be providing the answers to the quiz at the end of the test. We don't want to give people the answers before they take the test because we want to see what they think about the rule. So that's our plan, Tom. Any questions for me on that?
I'm just going back through the comments, and there's questions about, will you do anything by, are you available to do a Zoom if there's a big group of people at a club that want to try this, to give them a little coaching on this new rule? I think that was one question.
Yeah, I'm all in. So these Zoom sessions, when the person contacts me, I'll work with them. There's Zoom sessions next week, and then do 3 more in June, 3 more in July. I'd be happy to set up a private one too. I'm not retired. My wife reminds me I'm not retired, but I sit at my kitchen table with that fireplace behind me quite a bit, and I'm happy to be as helpful as possible.
In a nutshell, in a sentence, sum up the new rule and how it changes, if that's not too much to ask.
In a nutshell, I'll say the new rule is simpler with fewer exceptions, and it does not change the game in any substantial way.
And really, the big thing is the inside boat has to keep her proper course.
So right now, the inside keep clear boat will be allowed to sail her proper course, which is a little wider. But in reality, in good racing, outside boats don't stay outside boats throughout the rounding. Yeah. They unlock their bow, they go wide, they're going to round behind the boat they're giving room to.
And either get up on their hip or tack.
Right. So
Yeah.
the minute they do that, the inside boat sort of goes a little wide. And if you watch good racing, everyone kind of rounds wide and tight, one behind the other, which is sailing their proper course. So I don't think people are going to notice much of a change in the game. I just think when you sit at a rules talk, instead of me taking an hour to explain Rule 18 and 28 pages in my book, I think I can do it in about 5 minutes now and maybe 5 pages in my book.
Okay.
And then people are going to be able to remember it. That's the key, is that
Yes.
you can't use something if you don't remember it. And
Exactly.
if it's complicated, no one's got the time. You know, the tax code, no one's got the time to understand it. So that's our goal, is to provide something. Go, oh, I get that. That's pretty simple. I can understand that. Oh yeah, let's go.
Clark Chapin has posted Dave's Gmail address.
Yeah, we posted it. I think I did. John Emmett has. Thank you, guys. Also, we'll get that link up for the test.
Get that link up too.
Yeah.
And that's a cut and paste. It's a long link, and it's a cut and paste that I will do at this end after the show.
And at that link is the language you need to put in your notice of race if you want to use a test rule. You'll find a test rule there. That link has got more than the quiz at it. That link is sort of one-stop shop.
Cool. Okay, let's see if there's any other questions before we questions. Of course, we'll continue. But Dave, you can stay. It's 17:31 there.
Yeah, I got another 20 minutes.
Okay.
Well, how long do you think you're going to be going, Tom?
Not that long.
Okay.
Julie and I will have to go to the men's and ladies' room before too much longer.
I'm here.
Dave, thanks for your stewardship. Seems that you and your working party are bringing the rules to a great place, which to me were easy and workable many years ago. Yeah, Fritz, a lot of people thought when we changed from the old rules to the new rules, that caused more confusion than it was worth, but that was the late, great Bill Benson, who pushed, among others, who pushed Dick Rose, and others pushed down hard on that. Great idea, Ed Worley, saying thanks for all your hard work on making the rules understandable. Daniela Nagley. Hi, Danielle, is a new name. It is much more than time to explain the book, but be closer to reality. Thanks for all. Admire you. Okay, that's good. Thanks. Steve Atkins there at the Madison Beach Club, Madison, Connecticut. Excellent. Looking forward to trying this in our summer weeknight Etchell series. I'll reach out to the skippers this week. So
Great.
That's all good news. At least
Thank you all.
Nobody's saying this is a terrible idea.
You know, the other thing I want to say is I've heard over and over sailors saying, thank you for involving the sailors in the rule writing process.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, so that's the other feature I love about that. I'm a sailor. Yeah, actually, Tom, I want to correct something you said. I've never been on a rules committee. I've always been on the appeals committee. I always feel the rules writers write the rules and the appeals committee tell them what they wrote. We get to interpret. But more importantly, that's just where I enjoy it more. But this is my first rule writing experience. But we're coming at it as sailers. You know, Blue Lobato is a great life sailor. Dave Dellenbaugh, he's going to the Thistle North Americans this weekend to sail with his daughters. You know, Rob Overton. You know, we're all sailors, and we're coming at it as sailors, trying to, you know, help make the game better. So involving the sailors is so important to me and all of us.
You're on a rules committee now.
I'm on a working party, Tom.
Well, excuse me. Gosh. When I wrote that rules and brief card that Greg Bemis helped with, and he blessed it, a lot of people were against it when I became executive director of U.S. Sailing. I said, the rules are too complicated for newbies. And I produced a one-page, fit in a number 10 envelope, rules 1 through 2. We cut it down to 10 rules. David, you helped with that.
And I remember that project. It was well done.
That was in 79. Harry Anderson helped with it. Greg Bemis blessed it. A lot of people were, until Greg said, oh, I think this is a great idea. And it's still, to this day, I think, published by U.S. Sailing. So you are on that rules committee as well, the rules in brief. Little plastic card with the code flags on the back. Remember that?
The working party.
We don't want to ruin your appellate reputation. Okay, well, we'll see. Gordon Smith, I understand it better already. I've always struggled with it. Daniel Yount, nice work. Okay, we shall see. We'll put that in. Great idea, and thanks to okay, enough of all that. Let's carry on here. Julia, David, and we'll go to a Bravo Zulu, also just up the street from you, David, in New Portia, in Newport, Rhode Island. A really cool development we told everybody about on Tuesday. And this, as at the Armory, the old, what we used to call the Newport Armory, We broke this. Well, we didn't really break the news. It's been a long time coming. They moved the National Sailing Hall of Fame from Annapolis up to Newport and recreated a new thing called the Newport, the Sailing Museum, the Museum of Sailing. And do you know, in this building on Lower Thames Street, what Armory RIM stands for?
Don't ask me.
Julia?
Revolutionary.
It was post-revolutionary, but you're on the right track. It's Rhode Island Militia. And the Rhode Island Militia, which was a state militia, had these armories around the state where they kept their rifles and their armaments and their ammunition. Mm. Yeah, Gordon Smith has got a Rhode Island Militia, and it's in that building where the America's Cup press conferences back in the 60s, 70s, 80s used to take place, because it was there was before any big hotels. And this, of course, is D.C. This is Dennis and the late, great Bill Ficker. After Bill had won in 70, he ended up as the MC or the host. But in modern day, we think of Bruno Troublé, and Bill Ficker did a terrific job MCing or moderating those press conferences. This is arguably the last press conference in the Newport Armory, 1983, when the Aussies won. And of course, that ended the Cup in Newport and ended the pressers at the Armory. There may have been one or two after this particular one, which was on the night of their win. And there were some other famous press conferences in there, including the one where Ted Turner had a bottle of Aquavit. We've seen that video and slid under the table after he won in 1977.
Tom, that's a great picture of John Bertrand. Oh, yes. My God, that tells so much.
Yeah.
Look at that. Yeah. I mean,
what an exhausting week.
He's probably loaded. He's elite.
Yeah, that, of course, is JB. That's the late, great Alan Bond, and this is his wife, Red, Eileen Bond, and the rest of that team, most of whom are still around, are good friends.
Yeah.
And that's a terrific photo from the Armory. Well, that Armory on Friday, we ran this photo on Friday's show, and you can see them, the mayor and others are cutting the ceremonial ribbon for the ceremonial opening of the Sailing Museum. Gary Jobson there in the back with the New York Yacht Club tie-on has been a mover and shaker, along with David Elwell there on the left, esteemed past Commodore, New York Yacht Club, second from the left. Heather Russom, I remember how to pronounce her name. She says it's Russom, it rhymes with gruesome. She is anything but gruesome. She's a terrific mover and shaker. She's the executive director. And they, yesterday, I believe, released a video, just a short one that I thought we'd play. Robbie Haynes.
Around here, we like to say that we believe sailing has something for everyone.
Gus Carlson.
We believe it can inspire, excite, teach, engage,
Andy Rose,
include, and transform.
Sailing may start here, but the adventure extends far beyond our doors. Through the lens of the Hall of Famers and museum activities, we are working to support the sport, grow participation, and get more people into sailing and all that it offers on and off the water.
We believe those who walk through these doors, sailors and non-sailors alike, will have an extraordinary experience and understand why we love this sport and those who ply it so much.
So excited to welcome our community and visitors from near and far to experience what we already know as sailors. There is a magic that happens when wind and water meet.
So everyone here right now can take pride that the doors are about to open. So please spend some time looking through the exhibits. Tell your friends to come experience the Sailing Museum.
We like it.
All of us can take pride that we're showing the way for many people that they too can enjoy their time on the water. So thank you.
What's a sailing museum without a display of Mount Gay caps?
I know. Yeah.
Is this the same sailing museum that has USA 17 winner of the AC 34 on San Francisco Bay? No, I don't think so. But there may be replicas. But Bravo Zulu to Gus Carlson, to Commodore Elwell, to Gary Jobson, and Heather Russom. They've done a terrific job. Heather's a Fozy. She's been on the show. We're going to get her on the show again. to tell us, she's executive director, as I think I mentioned, to tell us how it's going. They formally opened to the public today. It's on Lower Thames Street, a couple blocks from really the main four corners or three corners of Newport at Memorial Boulevard and Thames Street. And it is, by all accounts, a spectacular new museum in what we all think of as the spiritual heart of USA yachting. You can argue about Annapolis and David, I don't know where else, San Diego, San Francisco even, but really Newport has been the spiritual heart, and now they are the home to the Sailing Museum featuring the National Sailing Hall of Fame and the America's Cup Hall of Fame. Nice development. Julia?
Yeah, no, very much so. And we had a chance to look at it sort of before, and I was, as I've said before, impressed with how interactive it is. I was wondering how they were going to bring that out, and they did.
It's a good point, because that is the whole deal. They have stressed, and I didn't put it in here, but the press materials, how interactive it is for and hands-on like a kid's museum, but It's hands-on. Whether you're a sailor or not, it should be quite interesting. David?
Yeah, I agree. I was integrally involved in one of their exhibits where you race boats around the course and make decisions. And they really wanted to bring out all aspects of the sport for non-sailors. So they're really hoping not only will sailors enjoy it, but non-sailors will get in there and get the bug. So I encourage all of you to support it and try to get there. There's a lot going on. You can just see from that video. They got one of the first J24s, and they sawed it in half. So you can actually see how the boat's constructed, how it's laid out. It was just fascinating to see, the inside of a boat. So it's not just trophies and pictures. It's a lot of insight, and they hope it goes well.
Yeah, the J24 ragtime. That was Rod Johnson's first boat, right?
Yeah.
Wasn't that boat one? I don't know, Ed Worley. Have they moved the America's Cup Hall of Fame from the Harrisoff Museum? No, they've got both. Harrisoff Museum up in Bristol doesn't have nearly the footfall, nearly the natural traffic that Newport does, except maybe on the 4th of July when Bristol, Rhode Island has a fabulous 4th of July celebration parade. So they're going to have back and forth between the Harrisoff Museum and in Newport. And I think it's, as you say, Gary. We've had Gary on the show talking about it, but as you say, David, it looks good, sounds good. Gordon Smith and many others are agreeing. USA 17, thanks Todd Johnson, is at the Mariners Museum in Newport News, VA in Virginia. And Stingray's asking, do they have a special Rule 18 exhibit? Not yet, but maybe. Look I've got my foot up in the shot, Julie. That's not correct. Put it up here. Get my foot up.
Yeah.
Old sailors with bad backs. How's your back, David?
Oh, Tom, thank you for asking.
I'm
so glad they got rid of those water bottles.
Well, we did. I've told too often the stories of us all growing up wearing wet sweatshirts and water bottles. Before there was any limit. Now there's at least a limit class by class.
Yeah.
It still ruined the backs of a lot of us that have, like David and I, long backs and short legs, and then the people with long legs and short backs, it ruined their knees.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right? So thank goodness we've done that. Let's switch to this day in history, and I'll ask both of you. I gave a little hint at the top of the show. We're dedicating this to Ted Ryman. This day in history in 1994. What happened? Here's your first clue.
Must be Mandela.
Well done, Julia. It is Mandela. That is the flag of the Republic of South Africa. Nelson Mandela, the president, who lived from 1918 to 2013, and often referred to as the father of the nation by South Africans. Nelson Mandela was an anti-apartheid activist and politician, as I'm sure you all know, who served 27 years in prison after being freed in 1990. He became the president of the African National Congress before being elected the first black president of his country in a fully multiracial election, 1994. For his activism, he received over 250 honors, including the 93 Nobel Peace Prize, the U.S. Presidential Medal of Freedom, and the Soviet Order of Lenin.
Oh.
That's impressive. So
Yes,
that historic event happened on this day. In 1994, Nelson Mandela was sworn in as South Africa's first black president. And Bravo Zulu to South Africa, the country struggling a bit again with COVID, but and some other problems. Ted Ryman's on here, but nice to see that country having really racial harmony. Maybe not totally. They've got some socioeconomic problems, but making good strides from what was a very difficult period. Thanks not only to the blacks and Nelson Mandela, but to the white community as well, including Stingray, who grew up there. And Elon Musk, who grew up there, or at least for a while. Julia.
Stingray has a note about man pro willa hero, whatever that is, and I wish
I don't know what that means in Afrikaans or something. Ted Ryman, don't forget he met the Spice Girls.
Yes.
Ted Ryman. He sent
and enjoyed it.
He sent me some stuff, Julia. David, you don't know. I don't think you know Ted Ryman. He's been a stalwart fan. He hardly misses a show. He's in Cape Town. Bit of a sailor, bit of a motor. I don't want a pickle, just want to ride my motorcycle. He's a big motorcycle guy, and he's a big sailor. And he's a terrific guy. We love having him here on the show. We love having
a sport full of characters, Tom.
We are, and I mean, you remember that era when there was that agreement, that anti-apartheid agreement, when if you were at an event where the South Africa had competitors, had athletes, some countries weren't allowed to compete, and we had a youth world championship in. Where was it? In
Sines, Portugal.
Sines, yeah, in Sines, Portugal. I was on the jury. You were coaching the American team, or you were the free-for-all coach?
No, I was coaching the U.S. team, and Harold Bennett had to make a big decision because Russell Coutts was there for his last chance to win the gold. And the word had gotten out that if the South Africans were there, of course, Russell, you'll leave, and Harold, you'll take him home. And the South Africans didn't show, and they didn't show, and then they showed up. And Jimmy Saltonstall and Harold and I spent a long night over a bottle of something or other. And finally, Harold said, F it, we're staying. This is Russell's last chance. Russell won the gold medal as a youth. And Harold, I don't think, left the country for a long time or coached after that. But I'm still sure to this day he's proud of what he did, and he put the kid ahead of politics.
Well, exactly. It was a tough call because it wasn't going to change anything in South Africa. And it's like this rule with the Russian sailors now. It's kind of stupid to penalize the Russian sailors, in my not so humble opinion. One country that did call home and asked their country, their sailing federation, what to do were the Australians.
Yeah, I think Wilmot was involved in that.
Bobby Wilmot was there and a number of others, and they were told under no uncertain terms by their country, you leave, you got to go. And it was the Commonwealth countries. I can't remember who all was. The U.S. was not part of that agreement. And
that's how the Kiwis got wind of it, is the Aussies are making a big deal about it. So
exactly. And I was on the jury, but we got, what we did with Bobby Wilmot and the rest of the Aussies, they were headed to a Windsurfer Worlds in Michigan. So we arranged for them, talk about cutting a wide swath. We arranged for them to go back to our home club in Michigan at Portage Lake, where you've been, David. And the place was never the same after that. Yeah. My sister celebrated the arrival of Bobby Wilmot and all of his Aussie mites. Okay, enough of storytelling. We have another storytelling segment. I'm very pleased to, if you saw the show notes at the top, and I'm sure you know Alistair, David, Alistair Murray, he has agreed to do what we're calling an awesome Aussie anecdote. He came up with the name. Alistair Murray, that's an Australian order, AM, and he has submitted his first one this morning. Good day, Tom, Julia, and the Fosey. In the last episode of Sailing Illustrated, Tom challenged me to come up with a regular Aussie awesome segment, perhaps to rival the great contributions by super coach John Emmett from Pommy Land. I couldn't compete with John, as he does so well every episode, but from my long history in the industry and the sport, I am sure I can contribute something interesting once a week with an Aussie flavor, which is perfect.
Yes.
At least I have the advantage over John of being considerably older. It might be a funny story or about a character or about something topical in our sport in Australia today, or some Ron Stan history, who knows? But as this individual has been in the news so much lately, I thought I would start with a few words about perhaps our greatest current sailor, And I don't think he means the greatest current sailor in Oz. I think he may well mean the greatest current sailor in the world. And I go back to the story. If you see the name there at the top, this was from Friday's show when this grew legs and it's got its start. Alistair says, I wrote last week how a dejected young man bounced back from finishing 22nd in the laser class, David, in Beijing, when you were there coaching. After starting as world champion, he was world champion that year in the laser class, and he was favorite to win the gold in the laser in London 2012 as well, costing me a wagered bottle of Penfold's Grange Hermitage in the process. We've covered that on Friday's story, Friday's show. Now that he has been signed up by New York Yacht Club American Magic for the next America's Cup, I just wanted to expand on what a magnificent coup I think this is for the team. They have just signed up a great leader, a fine young man, and perhaps the best foiling sailor alive. And of course, we're talking about Tommy Slingsby. Tom, who was with us in a campaign here, I guess both the 2010 and the 2013 campaigns, which we won, Oracle Team USA. This is a great photo that Alistair sent of the current president of Australian Sailing, or Sailing Australia, whatever it's called, and Daniel Belcher, who must be the father or the brother of Matt Belcher, the terrific 470 sailor, I assume. Tom Slingsby, of course, the aforementioned, and Alistair. Alistair says, to recap on just a few highlights of Tom's career, 5 times laser world champion. In the 48-year history of the class, only the great Robert Scheidt of Brazil has won the worlds more times. Tom has to win it another 4 times to match Robert's 9.
That's
9
unreal.
times. That is unbelievable, isn't it, David? So he goes on to elaborate. He said the Olympic gold medal in the lace is Tommy's list. Twice Moth World champion. More on this later. Etchel's world champion, sailing with another great Aussie, the John Bertrand, whose photo we had on the show earlier from the Newport Armory. America's Cup winner. Okay, this is the peak of sailing. Twice Sail GP winner, twice Rolex Sailor of the Year. In talking about how great a foiler he is, with his latest successes being in the foiling Sail GP Cats, I actually wanted to highlight his success in the Moth class. I've always felt the ultimate small boat sailing achievement is to win the laser worlds due to the simplicity, the one design, nature, and the sheer physicality of it. I still have that up there on the pedestal, but more recently, the Moth Worlds has stepped up there on the podium with it as an ultimate achievement in dinghy sailing due to the audacious advances in design, the breathtaking performance, and the sublime skills required to pilot a Moth. To get an idea, Alistair says, of just how good Tom is in the class, just looked at the 2019 and 2021 Worlds. 2019 in Perth, 122 of the world's best dinghy sailors competed. Tom blew it in the first race with a lousy second place, and then reeled off 12 wins in a row before sitting out the last 2 races. Just think of that. In 2021, Lake Garda in Italy, to prove it was no fluke, and a fleet of 139 elite sailors, he won 13 of 14 races, dropping a second place.
Wow.
Every other competitor in both fields must have very quickly realized they were competing for second place at best. The Americans have bagged a beauty, that is American Magic, with a bugger. He isn't sailing. What a bugger. He isn't sailing for an Australian America's Cup team. And to top it all off, Tom is a great bloke, modest, calm, sportsmanlike, friendly, always happy to chat to the kids. Absolutely spot on. Alistair Murray, who's the chairman of Ronstadt, former longtime CEO of that very successful company, Australian-based, and of course, now vice president, probably soon to be president of Australian Sailing. That is today's awesome Aussie anecdote.
Great one.
Thank you.
Yes.
Alistair, terrific stuff. We'll look forward to more, which gets us to Correct or Croutonic. David, I don't know if you've ever seen this segment, but we have a segment called Correct or Croutonic in honor of Jody Shields, who first suggested it, came up with the terrible music that we use. And I put it to all of you. Did you watch the Grand Prix, David? Did you watch the Miami Grand Prix? You an F1 fan?
No, but there's a show that I'm starting to get hooked on about
Drive to Survive.
Drive to Survive. I saw a couple episodes a couple weeks ago, and it looks fun. So
Well, the question today relates to the Miami Grand Prix on this past weekend. Julia, we pointed this out in the show on Friday, and they wanted to have a marina. They originally wanted to do it down in South Beach or down someplace where they could have water, but it wasn't going to work for obvious reasons. So instead, they built this racetrack, the circuit, in the parking lot at the Hard Rock Stadium, where the Miami Dolphins play.
Right.
And then this is vinyl. They put in this vinyl covering on the parking lot to make it look like water and a yacht club. And this is what it looked like from the overhead shots on TV. Pretty good, eh?
Yeah.
Not too bad. This is what it looked like down on the ground level. Those are real boats brought in with you can see that here in this part of the shot, I guess you can see this is built up, and this was all built up on all around it. The boats are on trailers, presumably, and it was built up with plywood, with wood, and then covered with this faux looking water, the marina. I mean, it looks pretty darn good.
Yeah.
It's astonishing, in fact. And then they had what was called the Miami, the F1 Yacht Club or something.
Yeah.
Miami F1 Yacht Club. So I ask all of you, it was fake, and it got a lot of coverage around the world from people saying this is terrible. A lot of people, look at, you can see the beach club right there in the middle. People were seated there, and they were, supposed to look like they're at this yacht club. They called it the Yacht Club.
Mm-hmm.
I ask you, is this correct or Crutonic? Is it worth it? It got a lot of press for the event. So from that standpoint, I'd say you'd have to say it was correct, but it was fake. It was faux. It's like we have some plants in the studio that are real and some plants that will never see the light of day, so they're fake, Yeah. David, you're first.
Listen, as I always tell my kids, there's reality and then there's everything else.
The virtual reality.
There's a place for both of it. So, who am I to say? If this helped promote what they wanted to promote, good on them.
Julia?
But sure, I could say there's a lot more better uses for the money that was spent here than I could think of.
That may be true of F1, period. I'm sorry.
Correct or Crutonic, Julia?
Oh, I find it amazing and unnecessary. But
correct or Crutonic, Julia?
Oh, I do it correct for the comic value.
The comic value for the publicity.
Yeah.
I think that's the way I think David was far more diplomatic even than that, right? But look at all these comments. Daniel Yount, just like an ad for a yacht club. John Mangino, boats. Yeah, I think the boat, you go back and look at this picture. I think some of these boats paid not only the expenses to get the boat there, but also for the publicity of being there.
Of course.
Promotes clubs, Daniel Yount is saying. Does it? I don't know, Daniel. It kind of makes us look kind of fake. And Stingray, we will soon be watching sports events in very realistic VR, virtual reality, and guess what? They could be spectacular. Okay, Stingray, who is a code jockey for Boeing, former, he just retired. Gordon Smith, I think it was fun, as it is. And Gordon's a Brit who lives in Denmark. As it isn't a permanent racetrack, they needed to do something so it didn't look like a car park.
Good idea.
Okay, I think we can all accept that, right?
Yeah.
Ted Ryman says it was a laugh. Emmett says it was Crutonic. Clark Chapin, who's Clark David, who's up in Detroit, former.
Oh, I know Clark very well. What a great guy.
Great contributor to the sport via U.S. Sailing and beyond. He says the very and a car guy, used to work for Generous Motors, right? The very definition of Crutonic, Clark is saying. It's like the town, here's a good comment, Bill Wingrove. It's like the town in blazing saddles. Steve Groover, whom you're going to see tomorrow night at the Atlantic dinner, he says it's Crutonic. Julie Aaron says it's Crutonic. Jonathan Frank, on the other hand, says it's an outstanding concept. It is correct. Steve Atkins says it's Croutonic to a whole new level of stupid. I can't imagine what it costs, Steve. That's a good question. Okay, now build up to trailer height, neat view. Okay, enough of all that. So we've got corrector Croutonic for today's show.
Yes.
Most people think it was Croutonic, but if it promoted the event and helps F1 take hold here in the U.S., Drives to Survive. You know that the America's Cup, David, is doing a similar show on Netflix. They're trying to, anyway. We'll see how it takes, called Sail to Prevail or something. I don't know what it's called. Sail to the Holy Grail.
Those behind the scenes things are great. I think you probably try to bring that to light in your Sailing Illustrated, but people always like to get the backstory.
Now, here's a funny, you're right. Here's a funny comment. We could put up backdrops of Auckland at Barcelona. Needed some great white sharks with team branding on them. Luca Craig down in Auckland is saying. Alistair Murray telling stories from behind the bar will be riveting. Mets Amsterdam comes to mind. Peter Stevenson, a.k.a. Pedro Foiling Sailor. Julie Aarons, just a plain waste of money. Okay, enough of all that. To our final segment here. This weekend, the much-awaited start of Season 3 of Sail GP.
Hey, Tom, can I jump in real quick?
Please.
I actually turned to a pumpkin now.
Okay.
So this has been great fun. I really enjoyed my time here, and thanks for having me.
David Perry, thank you very much indeed. It was a great.
Absolutely. No,
it was a great treat. We got to get you on more often. You're a font of information.
Yes.
Well, you know how to reach me, and I love seeing all the people that are chimed in. You know, it's fun to reconnect with them. So let me know. But I got to go now, and good luck to the rest of the show.
Regards to Betsy.
Okay.
Ciao.
Bye.
Dave Perry, live from Southport, Connecticut, was our guest today. Filled in at the last minute with just about 4 hours notice and put those nice slides together. We appreciate that very much, as we appreciate David and have for 50 years that I've known him. With great pleasure. There is Tom Slingsby sailing in the Great Sound in Bermuda over the last couple days with their Aussie boat, the previous winter. And I couldn't find a new live or a new video, but I did find this GoPro video. We may have played part of this before, but have a look. It's a cool video highlighting, recapping the key points of Season 2 via GoPros on the yachts themselves. Have a look. Nice piece.
Yes.
Julie.
Yeah, I was just thinking all the way through it how much Larry Ellison has given to the sport, and in many kinds of ways. But this would never have happened without him.
No, for sure not. For sure not. And a bunch of other cool comments. Gordon Smith, I think that there needs to be a crash structure around the crew pod. Someone is going to get seriously hurt soon, unfortunately. Hope that's not true, but Gordon may well be right. Stingray, apparently SailGP Japan will get awarded redress points, yes, for the 3 events they will miss because they don't have a boat. Their boat's been given to Canada, and they will be based on the results in their first 3 return events. They will return in Copenhagen. That's the word, Stingray. Thank you. Emmett saying, so looking forward to the next SailGP season. Smith is saying, GoPros and drones are made for sailing. Really brings the sport alive for those who are not familiar with it. For those who are not familiar. It says SailGP rebuilt. Ed Worley, thank you. I think we answered that question. Ted Ryman saying, Dave Perry, Mr. Cool. Great work from him. I liked it. Daniel Yacht. Stingray saying, thank you, Dave. And Ed Worley finally saying at the top there, Australia has the best SailGP paint job. Julia, we're to our final little bit here. One last slide on SailGP, and that's the recap the 20, or to preview the 2022/20-23 season, starting in Bermuda, as we told you, this weekend, then going to Chicago, then going to Plymouth in the UK, then Copenhagen, and then on from there, including a final here, Julia, in San Francisco. That was a good event here.
Yes.
A few weeks ago, a couple months ago now. And we shall look forward to that return here and a new event in Singapore as well between now and when we get back to San Francisco. That brings us to our final little segment here in the D block. Julia, you'll like this. It's clean.
Oh.
I guarantee you it is clean.
Okay.
For Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. I think there's a lot of discussion about how fast those boats are going to go too, and those SailGP boats are getting stiffer, stronger foils, titanium, I think, eventually, and they may go faster than the America's Cup boats before we're all done. Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. For today, I have one slide, courtesy of Ed Worley. If only that were a sailboat. If only that were a laser or a sunfish or something, not a motorboat. I mean, here are clearly Amish people in Pennsylvania, I assume. I don't know where. Ed came up with this picture, towing their motorboat to the pond to go do some fishing or something. Mm-hmm. It should be a sailboat, since they don't believe in powered vehicles. I thought that was the case, the Amish. I got increasingly pink today, matching the prawn theme. Did I get increasingly pink? Yeah, I got to work on this camera a little bit. New camera. It's better. It's the best camera we've had. We've got 3 really great cameras in here now. But thanks, Ed Worley, for that shot. That gets us to the finish line. It was clean, Julia.
It was.
Julia, your witness.
Yes. Don't miss the opportunity to like, follow, and share. It adds greatly to our reputation with Facebook.
Indeed it does, and YouTube for that matter. Thank you. A couple of you signed up to our YouTube page as well. All of that helps a little bit by bit. Comments welcome too, even in replay. And if you will, please support us on Patreon, patreon.com/join/Sailing Illustrated. Brings us a few $100 each month to help pay for the heat and light and the electricity that powers our television show, to say nothing of the internet connection, which we got another stellar internet connection today. No problems. 0.0% frames drop due to rendering or encoding lag, and network drop 0.0. So I think we're on a roll here after a little bit of a problem we had a couple, 3, 4 shows ago now.
Yeah.
Thanks to everybody who gave us visuals and audio for today's show. Julia, last thoughts?
I guess I'm reminded of all the trouble in the world and all the awful things that are going on there. It's nice to be reminded of really wonderful people.
Yeah, then along comes a guy like Dave Perry, and so many people like him in our sport. It's fantastic. We are so lucky, as well as to have all of our FOSI Stingray, thanks for your kind comments. Fun and insight, Gordon Smith, Jonathan Frank. What another wonderful afternoon spent with good friends. And Julie, it sounds like we now have a Sailing Illustrated band. When next we can get together, we have a drummer. Was somebody? Was it Ed Worley says he plays percussion, and we got a real band here. We'll get Dave Perry to come play.
Yeah, and a piano player.
Play piano for us. Hope you all have a great rest of your week, and if you can, in the meantime, until Friday, we'll see you on Friday. Sail fast, sail safe, and have fun. Ciao for now.
Do we know who